Amazing to see everybody. It's been a little bit of time. I'm so glad to be here. I love this community, so thank you for allowing me with the platform to share. Hope everyone's having a beautiful start to their week. So, like Josh said, we're going to do a little bit of teaching. I'm going to bring a teaching about the Parshat Shavua, and hopefully it's something new. And if not, maybe we can listen with new ears. And also talking a little bit about where we're at right now and what we're approaching and how we can take it into our daily life. And we're going to do a little bit of a visualization meditation connected to the Parshat Shavua. So, with that being said, the Parshat Shavua, it's Matot Masai. And when I came to do my study for the week, I was looking at this word, and the word that is essential here is the word journey. And this Torah portion begins and it says, "These are the journeys of the children of Israel," and goes on to talk about everything that happened while we were wandering from our period of freedom, recent freedom from Egypt, until we got to the promised land and what happened in between. So there's two things that I want to talk about, two main parts of this Torah portion. And the first one is this concept of holy sparks. So if anyone has ever heard of this concept of holy sparks, this idea is that at the conception of the world, a vessel broke and holy sparks were scattered all over the world. Nitzotzot, it's called, like nitzotz in Hebrew, if anyone knows a little bit. And that everything that we're doing in this journey that is our life from the day we're born till the day we leave this planet is the collection of more and more sparks in order to make this vessel that was whole again. And in the Torah portion, there's this, it's spoken about these sparks, that as the Jewish people went out into the desert, they were gathering these sparks of sanctity, these sparks of sacredness, these sparks of hope. And so what's the message that we get from this idea? What are the sparks? Where are the sparks? Are the sparks only good? Are the sparks everything intertwined? And there's two main aspects. The first is that the sparks were only able to be captured when the nation of the Jewish people, the nation of Israel, was on the move. When we were camped, when we were sitting, when we were passive, when we were staying in one place, we weren't finding the sparks around us. And only once we actively started to journey through into our next version were we able to find the sparks along the way. And so this brings us into the consciousness that maybe we can't physically move too often, or maybe we can't physically change places, but we can always be active in our minds. We can always be active in our hearts. We can always be active inside ourselves in order to discover inside and around us what are the holy sparks to me. And there's an interesting teaching about this week's Torah portion that why is it that the Torah wasn't given before to the patriarchs or to our fathers or to our mothers or to the holy sages who came before us? The Torah was given actually to the tribe of the Jewish people when they came together. And so what we're taught is that we were only given the Torah when we were complete and unified as a people. And until we had a certain amount of people who were gathered together doing this journey together, we weren't able to receive this huge blessing that would define us as a people going forward. And so we have two things. One is the existence of the scattered of the sparks, knowing that we can be fragmented, we can be dispersed all over the world, but through the strength of our unity and through the strength of us journeying and traveling, even through the hard times of a desert, even through the heat, even through the fires, through our unity, we come out and we receive this great gift that was meant for us and was to be given to us. And so we're also at the same time in a period of mourning, right? We're going in these 3 weeks that will lead us up to Tisha B'Av, when the first and second temple are supposed to have fallen. And it's on August 12th, if I'm not mistaken. Josh, you may know better. And we're in this period of mourning, but there is a different teaching rather than the period of mourning, that we're also in a period of refinement, in a period of preparation, in a period where we can every single day be sort of refining who we are and what we're here to do and where we're going. And so what I took away from this Torah portion, and something that I felt was uncannily comparable to what we're going through now, which is this uncertainty of where we're going, right? When the Jewish people were freed from Egypt, they didn't have a map of exactly what's going to happen or what it's going to look like or if they'll be safe or where it's going to go. But there was faith. And so they kept journeying throughout the desert, throughout these hard times, throughout these difficult moments, awaiting this vision of a promised land, which is a bit similar to what we're going through now. It can feel oftentimes we're going through the fire, but they were aware that there were sparks along the way. It wasn't just one main goal at the end, but once they tuned into the present moment and opened their eyes and saw the sparks that come along the way, so they were able to collect them and become a unified whole. And there's an amazing book, I think we're going to share it in the chat, that I've read. It's called Magic of the Ordinary. It's by Rabbi Gertrude Winkler. And the idea is that we find the beauty in the things that happen every single day. Part of being a in tune, spiritual, Jewish, individual, human, soul, neshama, whatever it may be, we can tune into this ordinary of the magic moment and suddenly start to find miracles. And that's what the story of our wandering through the desert is. The desert, some people can look at and say there's nothing in it. But as soon as you stop and you pause and you sit and you look around, you start to realize that that nothingness is actually full and buzzing with life and electricity and heat and cold and animals and plants, and the molecules in the air around you start to feel like they're alive, like they're vibrating. And that's the holy sparks. Those are the small moments that create the big moments that ultimately give us the joy and the beauty of life. And only once we pause enough and breathe, which we're going to do together, are we able to find the magic that is the ordinary. And so the main points, just going back of what we learned from this week's Torah portion, is that maybe we can find the braveness and the unity to go into whatever journey we may be on, to recognize the journey that we're on, what stage of the journey we may be on, and wherever we are, whether we're 90% finished with this journey or 50% finished, how can we gather some sparks before we get to the end of that journey? And the last thing that I'll say before we go into practice is this first sentence, this idea that these are the journeys of the children of Israel. It's told as a story. But in a story, there's something important about the way we tell the story. And I love that this word, this is the story of the journeys of the children of Israel, because in this movement, in this tribe that we were while we were wandering, we were all referred to as children, right? Whether you were an old person or a young person or someone in between, we're all the children, and we're all wandering to get together through the desert. And so as we go into our meditation and our visualization practice for today, it's going to relate to going on a journey, but I want to invite you to really, right now, as we prepare for our sit, wherever you are, to make sure that it's calm, to make sure it's safe, to make sure there's no distractions, and to tune yourself into this word children, child. And for the next however so many minutes we have together, I really want to invite us to put on our children's hat or put on our children's cape and feel yourself as you were when you were a child, imagining yourself about to go into the desert, about to go into this vast amazingness, and then we'll be able to tune this back into our regular day-to-day life and find some magic of the ordinary. So if that sounds okay, I invite everybody to get into a quiet position. Maybe light a candle if you have next to you. I lit one today. Getting to close our eyes. Placing both our feet on the floor below us, placing one foot down, and then placing the other foot down. Gently closing our eyes, letting our eyelids flutter closed. Taking our first deep breath in, allowing our shoulders to roll up. Maybe rolling our shoulders in a couple circles, waking up our body. Switching directions. Taking a deep breath in through our nose, letting your belly expand all the way out, holding your breath at the top. And HA, letting it go. Breathing in through our nose. And HA, sighing it out. Making sure our facial muscles are relaxed, wiggling our jaw, wiggling our eyebrows, wiggling our nose, unclenching our mouth, bringing it into a smile, and then releasing, feeling how it impacts our inside mood. And as we continue our breath, we let our spine elongate, our shoulders roll behind us with ease and with grace. Palms on our lap, either facing up if you want to receive, or facing down if you want to ground down a little bit today. Taking a deep breath in, bringing yourself back to center, to the here, to the now, breathing in. And HA. Maybe moving our head gently from side to side. And breathing in back to stillness. Our next breath in, we're going to begin to get comfortable, even more deeply grounded into the place we are. Letting the rest of the world fall away. On our next breath in, we sanctify this practice. We give it a blessing. We give it an intention, breathing in. And release. Breathing in. And release. The next breath in, we're going to close this second set of eyes. If you've practiced with me, maybe you've heard me talk about it. The eyes to our inner world. Closing the eyes to our consciousness, to our inner being. Totally safe in this cocoon we build around, breathing in and letting it go. On our next breath in, we're going to begin our journey for today. Breathing in, imagining yourself teleported all the way to the desert. Wherever you find yourself, take note of the setting around you. Is your desert rocky? Or is it full of dunes? Do low bushes grow around, or is it completely isolated? Maybe we have some footprints of a fox beside us, or the tracks of a snake. Breathing in, taking note of the temperature, the terrain, sensation of being in the middle of this quiet place. Breathing in, noticing the time. Is it sunset or sunrise? And release, blowing out all the air like the wind passing through. On your next breath in, zooming out, visualizing yourself, how you look, how you feel. Greeting this little you that came to journey far into the desert. Feeling both your feet touching the bare earth of the ground, placing one foot down and then the next. And returning always to our breath in through the nose. Holding just a second. And HA. Your next breath in, imagining this little you taking one step forward very slowly. Traveling forward, feeling the coolness of the wind touching your skin. And as you take your first steps forward, see yourself enveloped in a magical golden light. As you approach this light, you see the first spark coming in your path. What is the spark composed of? Is this spark a person or a moment? Is it a moment of laughter or a moment of dancing? Whatever it is, you bring your hands closer to the spark and pick it up as the light illuminates you, receiving the beautiful energy that this light came to give. And gently bringing the spark close to your heart, placing it somewhere in your pocket as you continue on your journey. Continuing with our feet, you can press one foot down and then the other, imagining yourself walking. Wherever our thoughts may wander, just gently using the breath to bring them back. Walking through, we hear the whistle of the birds and the animals. And on our next breath, we start to notice the tribe of souls around us, to our left and to our right. Who's traveling with you through this beautiful journey? Who's going with you as you go to gather the sparks? Taking their hand on the right and the left of those people who came to join you. Maybe it's your friends or family. Maybe people who have passed or people who are still with us. Maybe it's a pet or your favorite plant. Feeling their support and their unity with you. You continue walking closer to another beautiful light. See this vision of what you wish for the world waiting right in front of you. One dream coming true, one fantasy realized. When the Jews journeyed through the desert, they found all kinds of sparks. All parts of the journey were written down and remembered. As we get closer to the spark, we meet it with reverence, with curiosity. Taking a step closer, feeling our whole body illuminated from the beauty of this light and from the light we've already gathered. Coming close and with both hands lifting this huge spark up, holding it in our arms, holding it close to us, feeling the light. You can bring your arms around you if you wish. Breathing in and breathing out. Continuing on with our light and our sparks and our tribe with us. We see ourselves illuminated. In the desert. See the people to your left and right holding hands with an entire world of people around you. Realizing that you're not alone. Continuing, just taking some more breaths deeper into your body, imagining the light every time for a few moments. Breathing in and letting it go. If your mind has wandered, we can place both our right and left feet on the ground very carefully to bring us back to the present moment. Breathing in and breathing out. With our mind relaxed and our body enlightened and glowing, We see ourselves as this beacon of light in the desert. Walking through, taking our last steps until we get to this last beautiful spark. Looking at this spark and seeing yourself looking back at you. Seeing the reflection of your glow, of your light, and realizing that all of the sparks we've collected are already yours. You are already full of light. And as we take our next deep breath in, imagine yourself taking the spark of you finally back, bringing both hands to our heart. Breathing out all the air, breathing it out. One last time, breathing in, feeling our body illuminated, illuminated, illuminated. And HA. Slowly beginning to wiggle our toes, wiggle our hands. We can rub our palms together if we want to generate some heat. And once you feel the warmth, bringing our palms up to our eyes, creating two small teepees. Whether you're at the beginning, middle, or end of your day, take this moment to decide how the rest of it will be. Saying a prayer for peace, a prayer for healing, a prayer for love. Thank you so much. And like always, it's awesome to be with you guys.
Thank you, Kat. Please, I hope if you have a few minutes, you can stick around. We can do a little reflecting and Q&A. And if you need to leave us, we wish you tzedchem l'shalom, a farewell, and hope you'll join us again tomorrow or whenever you can, same time, same channel. Right now, we have an opportunity to recite Kaddish for those who are saying Kaddish. If you have names, the name of someone you are holding, excuse me, in heart or mind today, as we recite the Kaddish, invite you to put that in the chat. And you're also welcome to unmute and join me in reciting the Kaddish. The text is up on the screen. Yitkadal, Yitkadash,
Amen.
Yamlich, Malchutai, Ata Yechon Uv'Yomechon, B'chayei B'chol Israel, Ubizman Tzarich,
Amen.
Hey Shmei Rabba
Amen.
Olam Le'olam, Barach V'Yishtabach, Ba'ar V'Yitramam V'Yitnaseh, Yithadar V'Yitpaleh V'Yitpala Shmei Dekudesha V'Richu, Le'ela Min Kol Gvurata V'Shirata, Ushbechata V'Nechemata, Da'amiran Ba'al Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Mi Shemaya L'Chaim Aleinu Al Kol Yisrael Yimru Amen. Shalom Bimramav, Huya Aseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel Ve'imru Amen.
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 Al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen.
Amen.
Great. So we'll bring Kat back here then, and just muted you, so just you need to unmute. And thank you. All right. Kat, thank you so much. It's always such a pleasure to be here with you and to take in your teaching and be guided by you. And there's so much to unpack, I think, and I would really welcome questions or reflections from folks in the room with us. I was thinking about something actually you didn't mention, which is that the beginning of Parshat Maseh is the listing of 42 places, 42 destinations, right? That they traveled, and of course the Hasidic tradition, starting with the Baal Shem Tov, understands those 42 um, destinations or way stations as parts of a personal spiritual journey as well as the collective journey, and that all of us are on that journey. So I think it was beautiful how you were helping us really experience that, and with the image of the sparks and gathering them and bringing them along the way. It was really beautiful. So thank you. Um, uh, so there's already a question I see here from Lynn. She said, "What is the ha meaning
Yeah.
before the breath out?" Do you want to share about that?
Yeah, so I saw two that have technical, practical answers, so I
Yeah.
will answer both of them. The HA, it's meaning like to bring some voice to your volume, to your breath out. So like, like HA as in making a sound that you feel the exhale coming out of you, because there's a lot of release that happens when you have a physical vibration or physical something coming out. So sometimes it's good to breathing in, HA. I try not to do it while we're practicing because sometimes it's bothersome to people, but in your own practice, that's what I meant. And the second is I saw someone asked about closing off the second eyes. So it's not that we close ourselves off to our inner being, but it's almost like when you go through, like if you have a curtain and you have the blackout one and you have the shades, that there's the shades which close out to the outside world. This is the first pair of eyes when you close our eyes. But sometimes when you close your eyes, you actually get a lot more noise. I don't know if you practice, this happens for you, but sometimes actually when you close your eyes, the darkness and the silence can bring up our own inner voices. So what I mean by the second eyes is that we then bring like the blackout curtain in to really create this like bubble around ourselves, the sacred sanctuary from the outside in, but also from the inside out. It's like a filter, but always connected to our own being, but just the double protection to ourselves, if that makes sense. I think Judith asked this question.
It's interesting, Kat, that like the image that comes to mind for me in that is in the Mishkan, right, and then in the Beit HaMikdash, the notion of the Kodesh HaKodashim, right? That you first there are, these various places you enter through. First is entering into the temple itself, but then entering into, the sort of holy area, right, where sacrifices were offered. And then there was the Kodesh Kodashim, which was only where, or only the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, entered on Yom Kippur. But that it's almost, it's one thing to close the shades, right, and to separate off, but it's another to do this additional piece of getting to the innermost parts. And it's interesting that the Talmud actually talks about that, when we're praying, that we should have the intention of directing our hearts towards the Kodesh Kodashim, towards that, innermost, holiest part, right? And so the practice that you're describing is really kind of what I think the rabbis had in mind, is like saying, okay, really get inside it. So it's really beautiful. There's a question here that Harris has, and Harris always has good questions. He says, in your opening teaching, you talk about being complete and unified. What does it mean to be complete and unified? How are individual differences of thinking and opinion included in that? Which is, it's an evergreen question and a very timely one. So,
For sure. I would love to have the answer to total unification in the world, but I can't say my answer will be satisfying. I think the best answer that I would say I would have is that my sentence I use to everyone is that we're all going in the same direction. This is like on all my profiles, on all everything. It's the sentence I always use. We're all going in the same direction. And practically, what does it mean? It means we're all going to not be here one day physically in this world, But the whole idea is that there's only two things that we actually have in common with people around us. The one is that we've born, and the second is that we're not going to be here at some point of our lives. And I know that that sounds very esoteric and maybe a little bit Hakuna Matata, so it's not too satisfying. But I think that there is a practice that I do, at least especially coming back to the States when there's so many different kinds of people around you all the time. I'm based in New York with my family here right now. And when you look into someone's eyes and you recognize you're a human being that's going in the same direction as me. And practically what I read is that there was this certain number, it was 600,000. Josh, I mean, if you want to correct anything, please do. That once we got 600,000 souls joined together, that's when we were unified and complete. I don't know why that was the number. From the Torah portion, it meant that there needed to be a certain amount of souls coming together in order for us to be ready to hold this beautiful thing that was the Torah. But I think that it can be used in scale. It can be if it's your family and that's your main goal and that's what makes you feel most supported in the world. It's like, who would you want to go? What do you need as an individual to go make that journey through the desert? Maybe it's just yourself. Maybe it's you and your partner. Maybe it's you and your partner or your husband and wife and your children and your grandchildren. So complete, I think unified right now is a more challenging word than complete, but that we can understand like the Kiddush cup. It has to be full. And then whatever comes in is overflowing what's already full. And so I think what I can just say for myself, what it means to be complete and unified first and foremost in ourselves, that we are complete, that we are whole, that we are unified, loving ourselves, knowing how we are showing up in the world. And I think that really brings back that I think that that's what we see when we show up whole and unified and complete. It's really what we meet in the world. And so I think starting with ourselves and then that's why part of the practice is seeing who's around you, because sometimes really surprising people can come up, maybe to your left and right. It's like a random person, from the supermarket that you have a strong connection with. It's weird. But suddenly when you pause to realize how many people are behind you and around you on a day-to-day basis, you start to build a tribe, an inadvertent tribe, and you realize you're kind of all aligned, even if you think you have differences. You have more in common than you think. So it doesn't totally answer, but
Yeah, thank you, Kat. And yeah, such a timely question. Anytime there's a high political season, we think about that obviously. And there's there I'm of the opinion that in some cases the notion of unity, wholeness can sometimes be a better term than unity, just because if we can think about wholeness, it embraces brokenness and embraces otherness, right? Unity can sometimes get us into a place where the thing that's other or different feels like it's what's threatening the unity, right? And in English, I think in English that comes across maybe a little bit more than it does in Hebrew, right? You have shlemut, you have achdut,
yeah.
But I think oneness. If we say oneness rather than unity, which of course is ultimately I think from the same place, but even in English, I think it's a different valence, right? That there's a oneness that we can tap into on a deep level, which I think is exactly what you're alluding to.
I
So
think I just wanted to add, because looking at this question again, like making it into the practical world where we have such charged environment around us all the time, and people come sometimes with such charge. There's a sentence a friend told me a few months ago, and it hasn't come out of my head, which is strong opinions loosely held. And I think that this is like an amazing teaching that, like, know what you stand for, know what you believe in, but that doesn't need to close you off to the rest of the world. That can just be your anchor point for how far in my life, I believe that because I know my values, I can go to the most far away ones and not fear that something that I'm going to crack, because I know who I am. And so it actually allows me to go live in the middle of the jungle with people who still believe women should only be in the kitchen, which is so not where I am. But I know my beliefs and I know what I'm here to build and here to share, that I can actually meet more opinions, not less. And so how can our opinions and our politics and all this stuff enable us to actually see more and not see less? I wish this would
It's beautiful. Thank you. There's time for one last question, and Laura had the question just about the practice that you had invited us to imagine ourselves as children rather than maybe as we are right now in the desert, and why. Well, first I would ask, was that dafka that you were specifically, thinking of children, and if so, is that particularly important, and how it might be, how to do that if you might find it challenging. So I just want to invite you to respond to that.
Yeah. Thank you. It's an amazing question. It's my favorite part of the practice. So thanks for noticing it. I don't know if anyone saw the movie Inside Out 2, but see it. It was amazing. And at the end, when we get to the third spark in this practice, you see yourself as in this spark. And I think I would love to know how many of you saw yourselves as a child or an adult, but most likely when I practice, I see myself actually looking back as an adult, like who I am now. And something about that visual, imagining your child self looking at your adult self, it becomes this completeness, this unification, this like shlemut that you said, this achdut. And the reason, I said children because that's what I read, that the translation is that it's the children. But I think that's something with the children, when you imagine yourself as a child in a desert, it's like this awe for the craziness. And you can feel, going back to Inside Out 2, they talk about this idea of repressed emotions. Now, if you can't feel bad and sad, so you also can't feel totally good and ecstatic and happy. And I think part of why we're supposed to be a child in the desert is because some of those sparks, some of the recounts of the journey are tough recounts, right? Some of the parts of the journey are not so pretty and not so glorious and not so divine, but we recount them anyway. Because the idea is that to get to completeness, to get to unity, we need to take all the parts of our journey and see them all as sparks. And so why as children? I think that children are somehow able to process even better, even though in the beginning it might seem like they're having a tantrum. I wish all of us would have it. Maybe we all need to have a tantrum a little bit and then let it out and then keep going. And so, yeah, and it was the sentence of that.
Beautiful. Okay. Next week we'll get the sit sponsored by Inside Out too. Not evidently that it needs sponsorship. Okay. Kat, thank you so much. It's always such a pleasure to have you here with us. Thank you everybody for these wonderful questions and the conversation in the chat as always. We will be back tomorrow, same time, same channel. And until then, wishing you a peaceful rest of your day. Thank you so much.